Welcome to the Living While Loving Your Child Through Addiction podcast, formerly known as Living with Your Child's Addiction. Here, we focus on self care as we tend to our own lives while also extending love and compassion to our kids. This podcast offers science backed skills to bring hope and healing to your entire family. So, in the past, I have communicated my shorter messages through social media. But it's just become increasingly frustrating to me because it takes a long time to write a post, create the images to go with it, then all of the posting on all the platforms. And a lot of times, even though, say, I have 1,500 followers on Facebook, 10 people will see it. And it's even the same thing in my Living While Loving Your Child Through Addiction Facebook group. When people join that group, I have them answer some questions. And one of those questions is, what do you need help with most right now? And this year, I wanted to spend some time making videos answering those questions for people after they join the group. But the problem with that is nobody in the group was actually getting to see those videos. So I thought, I'm just going to start using them as podcast episodes. I'm still going to post on social media, so you'll be able to find things there as well. But I'm moving these more shorter episodes, shorter answers to questions, things I might have posted on social media for before over to the podcast because I know you're going to get notified and you're going to get the information that you subscribe to this podcast for. So recently, when somebody joined the group and she answered that question, what do you need help with most right now? The mom said, how do I be happy in the face of my child possibly dying? And how do I be happy when my child is so unhappy? And third, you are only as happy as your unhappiest child. And she said that more as a statement. But I'm going to break those down into three separate questions. So we're going to start with the first one, which was the last statement. You're only as happy as your unhappiest child. That saying does not serve us and it does not serve our kids. This, as soon as we say or hear something like that, we get the message that somehow our kids are responsible for how we feel and that they're responsible for our happiness. And they're already struggling. They don't need more pressure to be okay so that we can be okay. It also insinuates that everything should be okay with your child all of the time. And if there's any kind of struggle, that something has gone wrong, that, excuse me, that we shouldn't even be able to enjoy our lives because of that anymore. But that's just not realistic. Life is full of challenges, and that is just a part of life. We are not made to be happy 24/7. If we were happy 24/7, then we would no longer appreciate it because we don't have the contrast of feeling the difference between happiness and sadness. We need that contrast of the full spectrum of human emotion in order to truly appreciate feeling happy. So, reminder that our kids are going to have challenges no matter what. And I've been in a group coaching program with a lot of moms before, and none of those, well, some moms, their kids were struggling with substance use, but a lot of it was just moms in general. And it didn't matter what their child was struggling with, the mom was struggling because of their child as well. Like one time, I'll never forget, this woman was being coached in a huge auditorium full of people. I think there was like 300 people in there. And she was talking about how being so worried about her son, and he wasn't doing well in school, and he didn't do well at making friends. And she was just really concerned for the rest of his life. And she had been getting coached for a few minutes. And then the coach asked her how old her son was. And he was in kindergarten. And through listening to her talk about him, you would have thought this kid was like a senior in high school. But she was really struggling because her son was struggling and making his school experience mean something incredibly tragic. So we owe it to ourselves and to our kids to not expect everything to be okay all the time and embrace the reality that struggle is a part of life and that struggle gives us the contrast that we need to truly enjoy our lives. So it also amplifies that saying that somehow it's better for our kids if we join them in their unhappiness. And when you think about it, if you're in the same emotional space that your child is in and you are struggling as much as they are, then you are not in a place to give them a hand up or help them. And what I always envision in my mind's eye when I say that is I see two people climbing a mountain and the person higher up turning around to reach down to the person below them. And they're able to reach down and help that person below them because they're a little bit stronger and because they have more experience climbing mountains. They have a unique advantage that they can leverage their strengths. And that is how it is for us as parents as well. I believe that we owe it to our kids to live as an example of what it is like to live a good life. When I was laying in bed with pneumonia, and it had been going on for 2 months at that time, I thought I was going to die. I was not taking care of myself. Things were really bad with Helena. I couldn't help myself, let alone help her. But when I started taking care of myself and I started focusing on my own health and wellness, I put myself back in that position to be able to provide support for both of us. I was able to be the one turning around, reaching down to her to give her a hand up. And ironically, that's when she finally let me. I had been trying to help and support her all along, but it wasn't until I really started living as an example that she actually accepted help and support from me. So please, right now, just set yourself free from that idea that we only get to be as happy as our unhappiest child. Just retire that and don't hold yourself to that. We can actually support our kids better if we don't join them in their struggle, but we remain strong and able to support them. The second question is, how do I live a happy life knowing that my child might die? And I think that knowing that your child might die is the most important reason to live a happy life. Because if you're living a happy life, then you're going to have a higher quality of relationship with your child. And you're going to be so much more available for connection and being present with them. And if they do die, you will have the gift of knowing that you made the most of the little bit of time that you got to spend with them. And you get the gift of being proud of how you showed up as a parent. My daughter, Helena, passed away 3 years ago, and she had been in recovery for about 18 months. She had a reoccurrence of use and passed away from a fentanyl overdose. And she was here one moment and gone the next. And the thing that gives me the most peace of mind is knowing that I made the most of the short 21 years that I had with my daughter. And most people would think that the worst possible thing happened because she passed away. But I believe that the worst possible thing would have been if we had not had the opportunity to repair our relationship before she passed away. If I had not answered the calling to start taking care of myself so that I could support her in a way that I was proud of. So, to sum up my answer to the question, how do you live a happy life knowing that your child might die? You don't seek happiness in spite of knowing that your child might die. You seek happiness because of it. It's a possibility for all of us at any time, anyway. But because there is this increased possibility and there are no guarantees in life for any of us, it's really important that we make the most of this precious time and being happy and available for connection and support. The third and final question I'm answering is, how can I be happy when my child is so unhappy? And I've got a one-word answer to that, but I'm going to expand on that answer. And the word is acceptance. When I accepted that my daughter was struggling with addiction and that might never change, things might always be exactly the way they were in that moment when I started thinking through this possibility, it was actually really empowering for me because instead of using all of my energy to fight the reality of our situation, I started using my energy to work with it, to accept it, to meet my daughter where she was at. And I started asking myself questions like, what if things never change? What if my daughter always continues to use substances and her life is exactly like it is today? Do I want to look back on my life 5 years from now and find that I was still desperately needing her to change for me to be okay? And my answers to those questions were, I did not want to make my daughter responsible for my happiness. I wanted to start to enjoy my life. And again, I wanted to meet Helena where she was at and have the best possible relationship with her that she was capable of. Not the relationship of my dreams, but the relationship that she was capable of having with me at that time in her life. And my priority of love and connection became clear over everything else. Being right didn't matter anymore, controlling didn't matter anymore. Trying to just get her to see things my way didn't matter anymore. It just got really simple. All that mattered to me was loving her unconditionally and enjoying every possible moment with her that I could. And again, what's interesting when I gave up that control and that desire to change her, I held hope loosely. It was a part of my balance of acceptance was accepting where we were, but still carrying hope that things could get better, but just not needing things to get better. And so when I let go of that desire to control her and really started connecting with her, that's actually when I gained influence. But notice I said influence and not control. Like sometimes she might actually listen to me, a lot of times she didn't, but it was more influence than I had when we didn't have a good relationship. So you could break down everything that I just shared into a series of decisions. I decided to question all of my beliefs that weren't serving me and were holding me back from that unconditional love, excuse me, and connection that I wanted so bad. I decided to work on learning how to accept the reality of my daughter's addiction. It was a process. It was a decision and then many more decisions after that. I decided that I wanted to be happy and that I was willing to do as much hard work as it took to get there to that place of happiness that I was seeking. And I decided that I wanted to be an example to my daughter, that I wanted to show her that I was willing to do the hard work that I had been wanting her to do for herself for so long. And then I decided to follow through on those decisions day after day, even when it was hard. I found the people that I needed to support me in those goals. That included a coach, that coaching program I was just talking about with the other mothers. I actually started doing the homework that my therapist had assigned to me. I'd been going to her for years, but I was just barely showing up for my session weekly or every other week, and I was not doing what she asked me to do outside of the sessions. So I started doing those things. I was just all in on really changing my life, being in control of what I could control, which was me and how I show up for myself and my own happiness. I started working on my physical health. I mentioned that I had been really sick for a while. I started working out, being really intentional with what I was eating, making sure I was getting enough sleep, all of those things. And instead of being consumed with thoughts about how am I going to fix my daughter, I was focused on myself and what I could do to improve my life through the one thing I could control again, which was working on myself. And again, that gave me the gift of healing my relationship with my daughter. And it not only healed, but it strengthened. We were closer than ever. And I get to have peace of mind today because of that. And I'm forever grateful that I laid that foundation, that also I used all of those same tools to get me through my grief after she passed away. So that's it for this episode. I'm keeping it short, but I do have a couple of other episodes that you can listen to if you want to keep like learning about some of the things I talked about. One of them is episode 3. It is called What to Do When You're Paralyzed with Fear That Your Child Will Overdose and Die. And, I went through this phase where I was completely stuck in that fear and it was just like getting worse and worse. So I did that episode talking about what is happening in our brains, the science of it, and how we work through that and actually reprogram our brain so that that's not the thing that we're thinking about all of the time. And episode number 102 and 103 are about acceptance and an acceptance meditation. So I will put the link to those episodes in the show notes. And just remember that if you don't want to do this alone anymore, if you're sick of trying to figure things out, and you'd like to get some support so that you can get where you want to go faster, you can sign up for a Road to Recovery call. That call is how you find out about working with me one-on-one or in my group coaching program for moms. And the link to that is in the show notes as well.